Welcome to Pumping Python. My name is Jacob Itegboje. In this video, I am going to go over data structures, particularly Booleans, by comparing them with other data structures in Python to learn what they are and what they are not. There are two Boolean values, true and false. I'm going to create a file in my test folder called testbooleans.py and add some boilerplate. Import unit test class test booleans, unit test or test case. Define test, what is false. So for my first test, I'm going to test what is false. Add a instance check is instance false bool. I get an assertion error because false is an instance of the Boolean class. The assert not is instance method checks that the first given input is an instance of the class that's given as the second input. In this case, false turns out to be an instance of bool, so I change the test. Assert is instance false Boolean, proving that false is a Boolean. Assert is instance checks that the object given as the first input is an instance of the class given as the second input. I'm going to add another failing test to check what false is. This time I say assert true, false as the input. Assert true checks that whatever you give is true. In this case, false is not true, so I get an assertion error. And when I change it from assert true to assert false, the test passes. So from these tests, I can see that false is false and false is a Boolean. What is true? I'm going to add another test. This time say test what is true, like self, and I'll add the same instance test I did at the beginning. Say not as instance, true, Boolean. Testing if true is a Boolean. I see true is an instance of the class bool. So true is a Boolean. Then I add another test. Say I said false. True. I said false checks that whatever you give it is false. In this case, true is not false. I change the test to assert true, and the test passes. From these tests, I can see that true is a Boolean, false is false, and false is a Boolean. I want to know if any of the other Python data types are false or true. Is non-false or true? Is an integer false or true? Is a float false or true? Is a string false or true? Is a tuple false or true? Is a list false or true? Is a set false or true? Is a dictionary false or true? I'm going to add a test now to test if none is false or true. So I add self.assert true, and I say none. The terminal responds with an assertion error saying none is not true. I change the test to assert false and move it to the what is false method. The test passes. So I know from the test that true is a Boolean, none is false, false is false, and false is a Boolean. I'm going to add a test now for if an integer is false or true. So I'll do 1 to represent the negative integer, let's say -1. The terminal gives me a response, says that -1 is not false. I change the test to an assert true. The test passes. I move it down to the assert to test what is true method. I'm going to add a test for 0, so self.assert true, 0. The terminal responds, says that 0 is not true, so I change the test to assert false, and it passes. Move it to the test what is false method. I want to see also are negative numbers, negative integers false? It says no, -1 is not false, so I change that to an assert true, and then move it to the what is true method. I see that I still have passing tests. So from these tests, I used the wrong number there. I meant to use a 1 to test for positive integer. So let's do it again. Say false. 1, a positive integer is not false, and then I change that to true, and it passes. From these tests, I see that positive and negative integers are true, negative integers are true, true is true, and true is a Boolean. 0 is false, none is false, false is false, and false is a Boolean. Is a float false or true? I add a test to check, say self.assert true 0.0, and I get an assertion error, 0.0 is not true. I change it to assert false, the test passes, and I move it to the what is false method. I'm going to add a couple more lines to test if a positive and negative float are also false. So I say assert false, and I do minus 1.2 as my negative float, assert false, 2.3 as a positive float. Yes, I get an assertion error in the terminal. I change the test, assert true, minus 1.2 is true, things pass, 2.3 is true, and I move both of them to the what is true method. From these tests, I see that positive and negative floats are true, positive and negative integers are true, true is true, and true is a Boolean. 0 is false, none is false, false is false, and false is a Boolean. Is a string false or true? I had a line to test if a string is false or true. I say self.assert true, and I'll do the empty string first. I get an assertion error saying that an empty string is not true. I change it to false, and the terminal responds with a passing test. I move it into the what is false column. I do another test for a string that has text in it. It could be anything, and it tells me that the string is not false. I change the test, move it to, I say assert true, and then I move it to the what is true method. From these tests, I see that a string that has stuff in it is true, positive and negative floats are true, positive and negative integers are true, true is true, true is a Boolean, an empty string is false, 0 is false, none is false, false is false, and false is a Boolean. I will now add a test to see if a tuple is false or true. Say self.assert true, start with an empty tuple. Parentheses is how tuples are represented in Python. I get an assertion error. Empty tuple is not true. I change that to false, and I move it to the what is false method. And I add another test for a tuple that has stuff in it. I say 1, 2, 3. You can put anything you want. I get a response from the terminal saying an assertion error. I change that false to true and move it to the what is true method. From these tests, I see that a tuple with things in it is true, a string with things in it is true, positive and negative floats are true, positive and negative integers are true, true is true, true is a Boolean, an empty tuple is false, an empty string is false, 0 is false, none is false, false is false, and false is a Boolean. I will now add a test for a list to see if a list is false or true. I add an empty list first. I say self-assert true, empty list. I get a response that an empty list is not true. I change it to assert false. I move it to the test what is false method. The terminal shows me passing tests. I add another test to see if a list that contains things is false, and the terminal shows me that it is not false. I change it to an assert true, and the test passes. I move it to the test what is true method. From the test, I see that a list which has things in it is true, a tuple which has things in it is true, a string which has things in it is true, positive and negative floats are true, positive and negative integers are true, true is true, true is a Boolean. An empty list is false, an empty tuple is false, an empty string is false, 0 is false, none is false, false is false, and false is a Boolean. I will now add a test to see if a set is false or true. Self.assert true. We'll start with an empty set. The terminal responds with an assertion error saying that an empty set is not true. I change the assert true to an assert false. I move it to test what is false. I still have passing tests. I add a test for when a set has things in it. It shows me that a set with Contents is not false. I change it from an assert false to an assert true, and then I move it into the test what is true method. I still have passing tests. From the test, I see that a set with things in it is true, a list with things in it is true, a tuple with things in it is true, a string with things in it is true, positive and negative integers are true, positive and negative floats are true, positive and negative integers are true. True is true, true is a Boolean. An empty set is false, an empty list is false, an empty tuple is false, an empty string is false, zero is false, none is false, and false is false. I will now add a test for if a dictionary is false or true. Self.assert true. I start with the empty dictionary. The terminal shows me that the empty dictionary is not true. Curly braces is how dictionaries are represented in Python. It's also how sets are represented, but the difference is that dictionaries have key value pairs. I change the assert true to an assert false. The test passes. I move it into the test what is false method. I add another test for a dictionary that has things in it. I do a key value pair. The terminal responds with an error that a dictionary that has things in it is not false. I change it to an assert true. I move it to the test what is true method, and all my tests are passing. From these tests, I can see that a dictionary with things in it is true, a set with things in it is true, a list with things in it is true, a tuple with things in it is true, a string with things in it is true, positive and negative floats are true, positive and negative integers are true, true is true, true is a Boolean, an empty dictionary is false, an empty set is false, an empty list is false, an empty tuple is false, an empty string is false, zero is false, none is false, false is false, and false is a Boolean. I can sum all of this up as empty objects are false, zero is false, none is false, false is false, false is a Boolean, everything else is true. There you have it. See you in the next one.